The Boston Bruins season is quickly going off the rails after what the players called an embarrassing sixth straight loss.
You're Locked On Bruins, your daily podcast on the Boston Bruins. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is up, Bruins fans, and welcome back to the Locked On Boston Bruins podcast. I'm your host, Ian McLaren, and this is a daily show where we discuss all things Spoked B. Today is Friday, October 24th. Thank you so much for making Locked On Boston Bruins your first listen every day. And on today's podcast, we are discussing the Bruins not just losing last night, but being what they called embarrassed in a 7-5 loss to the Anaheim Ducks. 6 straight defeats, 7 goals allowed at home, players calling themselves out publicly, the head coach admitting he's shocked by the defense, the goalie saying we should all be, again, embarrassed. You know something is broken. We're going to talk about this rock bottom loss to Anaheim, just how bad the defense has become, plus Marco Sturm saying his hands are tied when it comes to roster changes, plus we'll break down what led to the game-winning goal, why it symbolizes everything wrong with Boston's game right now, and preview the Colorado Avalanche coming in to take on the Bruins on Saturday. Today's episode is brought to you by Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. Before we get into it today, a quick reminder, you can find the podcast on socials at Locked NHL Bruins. That's X, Blue Sky, Instagram Threads, even TikTok, and you can find me, my hockey thoughts, dad jokes at Ian C. McLaren. I'm a lifelong Boston Bruins fan, and I've been covering this team and the NHL for various outlets for nearly 20 years now. The Bruins last night aren't just frustrated by their current losing streak. They're flat out embarrassed. And it was something that was said multiple times by multiple players following the 7-5 loss to Anaheim. They're not making excuses. They're owning up to the humiliation of how things went down last night. Entering the third period, it was tied 3-3. Probably shouldn't have even been that close. The Bruins had dominated play for the large part of the start of this game, dominating in terms of shots, just unable to finish, and somehow allowed Anaheim to have things tied up as the third period began. Anaheim goes up 5-3. The Bruins are able to come back and tie it 5-5. And then, as we've seen over and over and over again, the opposition scores quickly after the Bruins are able to take a lead, and the Bruins were not able to come back once again. Morgan Geekie summed it up bluntly afterwards, saying it's just embarrassing to the fans, to everybody. It's just poor. Everything is poor. And he even went deeper, saying it seems to happen every game. The coaches prepare them with everything they need for the game, and at the end of it, it's just embarrassing to the fans, to everybody. Growing up, everybody watched the Bruins. Everybody hated to play against the Bruins because of how they played. That's something their identity needs to be, and they've gotten away from that, Geekie admitted. They start to think that there's something else, and when they do that, they get away from what they're really good at, which is playing good, hard hockey. Joonas Korpisalo, who allowed 6 goals, echoed that feeling. Quote, I'm embarrassed. We all should be. Nikita Zadorov, it's embarrassing. It's not how we want to play, how we should play, giving up so many goals every night. They're scoring enough. 5 goals against the Ducks should be enough to win a game. That's not our identity, as Zadorov said. We've got to find a way to shut it down before it gets too late. Charlie McAvoy, usually a fairly calm leader, called the situation devastating. The way we're losing these games, he said, is just killing us. We're fighting so hard. We just can't stop beating ourselves. He added they have to create the confidence in the room and that winning mindset with who they have now and what this group is. The only way to do that is to win and to do it the right way. And McAvoy's line, we can't stop beating ourselves, isn't an exaggeration. It's become a nightly pattern. The Bruins have allowed a goal within 3 minutes of scoring in 7 of 9 games this season. And last night, it happened twice, including on the game-winning goal, which resulted from a miscommunication between McAvoy and his defensive partner, Mason Lohrei. This is nothing new for the Bruins. We're kind of used to them losing at this point. They had a lengthy losing streak last season, but that came after the trade deadline sell-off, where Trent Frederic, Justin Brazeau, Charlie Coyle, Justin Brazeau, who's putting up points right now for the Pittsburgh Penguins, I should add, Brandon Carlo, Brad Marchand, of course. This team, they shuffled those guys out, brought some new guys in, brought in a new head coach, and they were supposed to reclaim that identity. They were supposed to be hard to play against. They were supposed to have structure and discipline. And it's everything but out there at the moment. The Bruins, hey, to their credit, they're scoring goals out there. That was a huge question for this team coming into this season. Who would score other than David Pastrnak? And through 9 games here, the Bruins are averaging 3.22 goals per game, which is actually good for 12th in the NHL. The problem is they're allowing 3.67 goals per game, which is 5th worst in the NHL. Only the Dallas Stars, the St. Louis Blues, the Ottawa Senators, and the San Jose Sharks are allowing more goals per game than the Boston Bruins. And this is a team that was supposed to be tightened up defensively. Sure, Hampus Lindholm has been out of the lineup. Seems like he's ready to go, or he's questionable, possible for each and every game lately, but he hasn't been able to get in the lineup. Jordan Harris is injured. Now we're relying on our 8th defenseman in Michael Callahan to help ease the pain here. But Charlie McAvoy hasn't been nearly good enough. Not disciplined at all. Taking a bunch of penalties. Miscues with his defensive partner. We'll talk about that more coming up. And those piss and vinegar grit guys who are supposed to be hard to play against, they're getting caved when it comes to possession, shots on goal, high danger chances. This isn't a sustainable model for the Boston Bruins this season, and 6 losses in a row, all in regulation. There's no more moral victories. We can't just say, well, a bunch of these games were 1-goal games against some pretty good teams. That is true, but last night was a real opportunity to turn things around and to get some confidence built with a win on home ice against a beatable team in the Anaheim Ducks. Mrazek in net for them last night. He was not solid by any stretch. Incredibly beatable. They did beat him 5 times. You score 5 goals on the Ducks, even with all the young talent they have, and especially with Chris Kreider out of the lineup, you should be able to win that game. They didn't, and they are now floundering pretty quickly, and this season is going off the rails fast. They're now 29th in the NHL in point percentage and have the look of a team that is not going to be able, maybe they can figure it out, but they don't have the personnel. They don't have the talent to win consistently each and every night. And that's a real problem for this team that doesn't seem to be going to be fixed internally if you take Marco Sturm at his word. We're going to talk more about the stats from this game, the signals, and what Marco Sturm was saying about the roster composition here as the podcast continues. Let's be real, making excuses does not solve anything. We've all heard them before. It's just stress, I'm tired, or it happens to everyone sometimes. But when it comes to performance, sometimes your body just needs a little extra support. And that's where Rugiet comes in. Rugiet.com offers fast acting, doctor prescribed treatments for ED, designed to help you stop making excuses and start making moves. Rugiet makes it easy to get started. You just connect with a board certified doctor 100% online, no awkward waiting rooms, no in person appointments. The process is fast, simple, discreet, and it's all handled by real doctors. Visit rugiet.com/lockedonnhl to get 15% off your first order. That's rugiet.com/lockedonnhl. Don't forget to use our code LOCKEDONNHL so they know we sent you. Rugiet, stop making excuses and start making moves. Hockey season is officially here, and nothing beats being in the arena for those opening games. But let's be honest, getting tickets can be a total headache. Between waiting in queues, surprise fees, and prices that jump right before checkout, it's easy to get frustrated when all you want to do is cheer on your team. And that's where Gametime comes in, the app that gives fans the advantage. It's your ultimate life hack for scoring amazing NHL tickets fast, easy, and stress-free. I recently used Gametime to grab seats for a Blue Jays game, and it couldn't have been simpler. Great seats in minutes, no surprise fees at checkout, and you can see exactly where you're going to be sitting from the in-app seat view feature. Their zone deals are a game changer. Pick the section and Gametime picks your seats and you save big. You can even find tickets for under $25. Take the guesswork out of buying NHL tickets with Gametime. Download the app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms do apply, but that's code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off. Swipe, tap, ticket, and go. Thanks again for making Locked On Bruins part of your daily routine. Available on your favorite podcast app and on YouTube. Please do hit that subscribe button if you have not done so already. Now, Marco Sturm, after last night's game, kind of echoed all of our surprise in saying he thought the work would be on offense, not defense. This was supposed to be Marco Sturm's wheelhouse, right? Structure, compete, smart defense. Instead, his team is leaking goals in the worst possible moments. After Morgan Geekie and David Pastrnak scored just 25 seconds apart to tie the game at 5, with just over 5 minutes left, TD Garden erupted. Momentum was back, but within 30 seconds, it was gone. The Ducks entered the zone on what looked like a routine cycle. Nikita Nesterenko held the puck in the corner, and both Charlie McAvoy and Mason Lohrei were caught kind of in no man's land. McAvoy watching the puck, Lohrei drifting too far up the wall, and neither committed to covering Troy Terry, who quietly slipped behind them to the crease. Nesterenko slid a perfect pass out front, and Terry buried it past Korpisalo uncontested. This is supposed to be your top pairing at the moment. Maybe you don't put Lohrei out there when you've just gotten a lead. Maybe they should have gone with Zadorov and McAvoy in those late minutes. That sixth goal, though, was a backbreaker and a pretty brutal miscommunication between two very key defenders. It was also a microcosm of what Sturm has been fighting against since day one. Players losing focus in big moments. They can't happen, he said after the game. Breakdowns in big moments, losing battles in their own end. That's pretty much the frustrating point for him right now. He said he knew there was work to do coming in. He thought it would be more offensively than defensively, and that's where he's really surprised, as are we all. They tweaked a few things system-wise. but still, it should be in their DNA. The Bruins' DNA, which is playing solid good defense. And now it almost goes the opposite. They're looking for a lot of goals and forgetting about their own end. And it's difficult to understand. Where is that coming from? He said. If he doesn't know, that's a problem. Sturm doesn't even recognize his own team out there. He was hired to reestablish Bruins hockey, Bruins identity, Bruins culture. 9 games in, that defensive, hard style to play against is nowhere to be found. And even worse, he doesn't seem to have the tools to make major changes. And hat tip to Ty Anderson for getting this quote. He said, Sturm did, it's hard to do changes. It's early in the year. They have a roster limit. Not too many changes will be made. You can tweak a few things, but that's about it. He's confident enough that these are the guys, and they have to get out of it. Not too many changes can be made. So the guys in the room right now, they have to fix it. They can't control anything else. Now, there's real questions about the roster composition, especially when there are guys down at the AHL level who are on fire to start the season. But again, offense isn't really the issue at the moment. It's the defensive. And statistically, it's easy to see why he is frustrated. 3.67 goals per game, 28th ranked. Expected goals against, they're ranked 24th. High danger chances allowed at 5-on-5, 12.66 per 60, which is 26th in the NHL. That's not Bruins hockey. That is chaos. That's not what this team is built to do, not what they are expected to do out there. Now, not to suggest that they should be dominating possession, but they are far from doing that, right? Shot attempt differential, fairly respectable. They rank 19th at 5-on-5. When it comes to shot differential at 5-on-5, the Bruins actually have a positive shot differential, especially after last night where they had many more shots than the Anaheim Ducks. And that's why I said perhaps they deserved a better fate. They just weren't getting some bounces on Peter Mrazek. It's not as if they weren't getting pucks on net, right? Last night, they outshot Anaheim 42-30. 20 in the first period, 13 in the second. They were outshot 12-9 in the third. There were some positives. Casey Middlestat scoring once again after being scratched. Morgan Geekie with a pair of goals. Mason Lohrei with his first. David Pastrnak, his fifth. But it was the defensive miscues and misplays that allowed for them to get beat. High danger opportunities. The Bruins, 26th in the NHL. They have a differential of 43.87. 68 high danger attempts compared to 87 for the opposition. That's just not going to do it. And they're also near the bottom of the NHL when it comes to high danger save percentage. 76% save percentage in those high danger areas. Now, yes, it could be a matter of puck luck. Their PDO is way near the bottom, 29th. That's looking at their shooting percentage and their save percentage, both of which could improve and help elevate this team. But when you're allowing such a big difference in terms of high danger chances, it's going to be hard to make those saves. If you're hanging your goaltender out to dry and not giving him the support he needs to make those saves, then things are going to go off the rails. So, coming up, what happens next? Morgan Geekie said it can get out of hand pretty quick, and with Colorado coming to town, it might already be happening. We'll discuss that all next here on Locked On Boston Bruins as the podcast continues. The NFL season is here, and FanDuel has an offer you do not want to miss. Right now, new customers can bet just $5 and get $300 in bonus bets if you win. That's right, pick a bet, put down $5, and if it hits, you'll unlock $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. People love using FanDuel because it gives them so many ways to play. You can build parlays, try player props, even follow the live lines during games. Makes watching football even more exciting when you've got a little something riding on the action. Whether you're a casual fan or love diving into the stats, FanDuel makes the game day experience so much better. So what are you waiting for? Visit FanDuel.com to download the FanDuel app today and get started. Put down $5 and get $300 in bonus bets if you win. So what exactly is next for these Boston Bruins? Can they get out of it? Well, here's the blunt truth. There's 3-6-0, 6 straight games, all in regulation, and only a few teams have worse records in the NHL right now than the Boston Bruins. If you look at the league-wide standings, the Bruins are 29th in points. Only the Lightning, shockingly, the San Jose Sharks and the Calgary Flames have fewer points than the Boston Bruins and worse point percentages. And coming up on Saturday is a game against the Avalanche, one of the NHL's most complete teams. And the schedule next week kind of gets a bit easier, but they do have a back-to-back. I don't know if it matters right now who's on the schedule. This team just cannot seem to figure it out. A game against the Ducks on home ice, coming off a game in which you, again, tied things up and then lost it in the last minute. You could chalk that one up to bad luck, but last night's game, it shouldn't have been in that position to begin with. The Bruins should have been able to come out and just take that game. Morgan Geekie issued a warning that should resonate. This is the significance of this 6-game losing streak. It's tough to be glass half full, to be honest with you, he said. Everybody in the room is sick of it. The new guys, the guys that were there last year that went through everything and saw everybody get shipped out at the deadline. You can't ruin your season at the start, but it can get out of hand pretty quick. And that's what's going to happen if we don't turn things around. He even alluded to everybody knows what will happen if they're well out of the playoff picture later in the season. There's going to be guys moved out. There's going to be a continued kind of asset recoup. That's not pessimism. It's just recognition. He lived through last year's collapse, and he knows how fast things can spiral. Now, the difference this year is that this long losing streak is coming at the beginning of the season. Last year, it came after that sell-off. So that kind of speaks to where this team is at right now. When the trade deadline came around, they were like a couple points out of a playoff spot, and then they really tanked heading into it. Maybe that was the plan all along. Maybe Don Sweeney's roster composition, Marco Sturm's admission that reinforcements will not be called up anytime soon. Maybe the plan was all along for them to once again find themselves near the bottom of the NHL standings in order to have a good shot at drafting Gavin McKenna or other top players in the 2026 entry draft. Nikita Zadorov said they've got to find a way to shut it down before it gets too late. Sturm said we have to fix it. Boston, look, they're still scoring at a pretty good rate. Like I said, 3.22 goals per game, 11th in the NHL. The power play even went 2 for 2 last night. But unless they rediscover their defensive structure and mental discipline, that production won't matter. And I guess calling guys up from the AHL won't matter either because they're unlikely to help stop the bleeding defensively. If it was they're losing 2-1 games or 1-0 games, maybe that's when you look to call up a guy who can bring some offensive flair while not sacrificing defense too much. But that's not the case at the moment. And the Bruins now have Cale Makar, Nathan MacKinnon, Martin Necas coming in on Saturday. This team is 5-0-3. They've yet to lose in regulation. They're coming off a shootout loss and an overtime loss against Carolina and Utah, respectively. Their last win came against the Bruins last Saturday. And look, this isn't a team that is even firing on all cylinders right now. They have a 30th ranked power play, which is kind of shocking considering who they have to deploy. Their penalty kill, though, is 8th. They're a pretty strong face-off team. That's one area of real strength for the Bruins this season. Boston ranks 2nd. The Avs rank 10th. The Avs are 3.5 goals per game so far this season, which is 7th. 2.13 goals against, which is good for 2nd fewest in the NHL. And Scott Wedgwood in net playing very well in relief of Mackenzie Blackwood, who is out for the season so far. He's 5-0-2 with a .910 save percentage. It'll be Jeremy Swayman back in there tomorrow. .903 save percentage with a record of 2-3. Jonas Korpisalo, 1-3-0 right now with a 4.03 goals against average and an .845 save percentage. Martin Necas, Nathan MacKinnon, both double digits in points. Cale Makar right there. Let's be honest, this is a game that the Bruins probably won't win. And until they rediscover their defensive structure, their mental discipline, it's going to be a tough go for this team. And I hate to single out individuals, but you can't have Charlie McAvoy out there taking minor penalties almost every game. He's got 12 penalty minutes through 9 games. Tanner Jeannot has 11, but he did have a pretty sweet fight last night. Nikita Zadorov with 10 penalty minutes. McAvoy has not looked very good so far this season. 6 assists, but he's a -3. No power play goals. 12 penalty minutes. And the penalty late last night really didn't help the Bruins at all. This game against Colorado isn't about the standings. It's about kind of reinstating belief in this team. Do these players still believe in what it means to wear the spoked B? Do they still play with pride and accountability that used to define the franchise? We'll find out Saturday afternoon against Colorado. A game that already feels like, if they come out and compete and fight, probably will still lose based on just talent discrepancies alone. If they lose a 1-goal game, moral victory, whatever, it's better than if they come out and lose like 8-1, like they did at points last season, then it's going to be really tough to come back from that. So that's where things stand right now for the Boston Bruins. 6 losses in a row, the latest being described widely as embarrassing. Sturm is shocked at how bad the defense has been. They're beating themselves. It's devastating. Reminded of that Radiohead song, "You Do It to Yourself." That's why it really hurts. The Bruins could have they could have at least 2-3 more wins so far this season without these mental gaps, without allowing the opposition to quickly regain the momentum. It's just so frustrating, hard to watch. And yeah, it's really looking like it's going to be a repeat of last year, if not worse, because again, they were right in the thick of it up until the trade deadline. And now things are going off the rails, and it's not even Halloween. So, woo, great. We will be back on Monday to break down whatever happens on Saturday's game against the Colorado Avalanche. bring you all the latest on the black and gold, because that is what we do here on the Locked On Boston Bruins podcast, your favorite hockey team every single day, win or lose. Be sure to check out the Locked On NHL Game Night podcast as your second listen. We will be over there. They look at every game every night until a Stanley Cup champion is crowned. And we will also, be back on Monday to break down what's going on, whether things look like they could turn around, and try to find the silver lining here when it comes to our Boston Bruins. Thanks again for checking things out. Please do take care of yourselves, take care of each other, and we'll talk to you again here on the next episode of Locked On Boston Bruins.